The Weekly, hosted by the editors of Pro Builder and Pro Remodeler, starts now.
Welcome back to another episode of The Weekly. This week, I talked to two off-site construction experts, one in academia.
Yes, pre-cut, 2x4 framing, panelization, wall framing, and modular framing can be, and most often is, more cost-effective.
And one who runs an off-site prefab construction service.
And we've created something that from the beginning has shown its ability to integrate with the systems you're used to. And it's really about just kind of adding a tool to that.
Although the industry has fared much better than expected during the pandemic, it really pushed some key issues to the forefront, such as labor and material shortages and efficiency. According to Home Innovation Research Lab's September Builder Survey, 19% of builders said their views of off-site housing methods are more favorable amid the pandemic. The numbers are telling us that some builders are slowly but surely becoming more open to the idea. Dr. Eric Holt, assistant professor at the University of Denver, sat down with me to discuss his off-site construction study, and a prefab construction service co-founder gave me a glimpse into the future of 3D printing and the company's prospective deal with one of the country's largest home builders, Meritage Homes. So I'm here with Sam Rubin, sustainability expert and co-founder of Mighty Buildings. So just to start, Sam, why don't you give a brief description of what Mighty Buildings does and your role there?
Certainly. So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer and one of the 4 co-founders here at Mighty Buildings. And what we do is that we create beautiful, affordable, and sustainable housing using 3D printing, robotics, and automation.
From what I understand, you really focus on being a service for home builders, architects, and homeowners. Many of the write-ups about your company, though, really focus on the ADUs, but that's not all you do, is it?
Correct. Yeah. So ADUs, we identified as a great beachhead market. Given the changes to California law that have really unlocked the ability to easing the permitting, streamlining that whole process. And so that's where we started. We initially have been going direct to consumer through targeted Instagram and Facebook ads prior to our launch from stealth mode this past August. But as you say, that's just the beginning. So we've already signed our first B2B contract with the developer in the Los Angeles area to really unlock the ability to create infill. So what we're doing for them are units over garages, duplexes and single units with 6-car garages underneath that take advantage of some of the changes in state law around ADUs to open up that ability to have multiple units there. We also have had some conversations with some of the big builders, and we have an LOI for 10,000 single-family homes once we demonstrate the ability to achieve capacity, which this first B2B contract is a step in that direction. We also have some MOUs with some other companies. So the B2B contract in LA is with Polari Group, which they operate a number of townhouses and single family developments. And so one of the really exciting things about those new duplexes and stuff is that it opens up opportunities for both increased rentals, but also increased ownership through unique models such as tenancies and commons and other opportunities there, which is something we're really excited about. And that's 140,000 unit potential in LA alone. So there's really a lot of opportunities there. And we're also moving towards customizable single-family homes using our panel system, which we've developed a Revit plugin to allow developers and builders to work directly with. And we're also moving in the future towards also being able to do multifamily and low-rise multi-story in particular, utilizing a new fiber-reinforced version of our material that has strength similar to steel. And so that'll really open up our ability to go multi-story with both volumetric modules as well as panels and combinations of those. And that's really designed to service multifamily builders and really be a tool for industry. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to impact the housing affordability crisis. And the only way that happens is by being that tool for the broader industry and really helping them adopt new technology without having to put all that money into the R&D and the development themselves. So we really see our role as making their lives easier, helping them accelerate their production, all while taking more advantage of their existing labor force. Because at the end of the day, it's our goal to make more work for everyone. We're not trying to replace jobs. We're trying to address the reality that there just simply aren't enough people to build. And so along with maximizing the value of that existing labor, we're really excited about attracting a new generation of workers. And our units are all designed to be easily installed by general contractors just with standard knowledge. We're not making them difficult and specialized. It's really about making it as easy as possible for existing legacy builders and developers to work with what we're doing. But what really makes us different, along with the fact that we're the only ones using 3D printing. So that's a big differentiator. We can print exactly what we need. We don't need to be cutting things and wasting material. So we're really creating a zero waste production process. Additionally, we're able to really fully embrace digital fabrication and Industry 4.0 because because of the nature of what we're doing, the design never has to leave the computer. So we're able to take that, have people work directly in Revit or Rhino or whatever their system is, and easily convert that into G code, which is what runs the printer and runs the CNC, the industrial robots that we're using for both quality control scans, pouring of foam insulation, as well as surface treatment. And with that, we have a proprietary what's called slicer software that does that conversion for us. And so that means we can eliminate the need to do a prototype in order to understand what's going to go wrong. We can simulate that production thousands of times before we ever get to that first build. And we can go from one design to another completely, like we can go from something small to something big just by changing the file. We don't need to change our production floor. We don't need to switch things around. So we're able to go really speed new product introduction by as much as 5 times, while also reducing those costs by over 100. We're able to create unique designs that leverage the 3D printing, because with 3D printing, we can do not only the floors and the walls, but also the roof. And it also opens up new design possibilities. Think freeform design, but at an affordable scale level. Like, so we can do it traditional. We have that design versatility that just you can't do with other technologies. It's basically a truly design agnostic production system. So that means we can go from doing a project that's one design to one that's complete, from a mission design to a modern design to something no one's ever seen before in 3 straight builds, one after the other, without having any additional marginal cost implement those design changes. So if we don't find these new ways to build, housing is to get ever more expensive, even with the shifts in the market. So I really think that 3D printing and automation have a key role to play, but so do humans. I mean, there's always going to be aspects that make sense for people to do. And given our unique model, I mean, one of the things I'm excited about is the future where there are mighty factories all over the country and all over the world. Because one of the cool things about what we're doing is because of the unique nature, we can set up in a relatively small footprint. And in doing so, we can create homes for a market, create jobs for a market, and really work with local partners who know that market. Because obviously, particularly on the entitlement side, it's important you have those relationships. That's why we've done a lot of work on the regulatory side as well to actually get 3D printing into the building code. Because of our work with UL and the new standard they created with us, 3401, it's actually been added as an adoptable appendix to the 2021 International Residential Code. And we've created something that from the beginning has shown its ability to integrate with the systems you're used to. And it's really about just kind of adding a tool to that toolkit, not trying to replace all the other tools, but just to give another tool that amplifies the impact of them.
So I didn't know if this was public knowledge, if I could ask about Meritage Homes and your partnership with them.
I can say just a little bit. But yeah, so we did sign an LOI with them for quite a few units per year. Once we demonstrate that scalability. So that's something that we are in conversation with them about, and that they're really excited about what we're doing. But obviously, to work on that scale, we have to demonstrate we can produce on that scale. And so that's why we've, in the near term, are focusing on these MSAs with groups like Plari Group and with some of these other smaller developers here in California to demonstrate that ability to grow our production and to grow that capacity and to be able to scale to the point where we can be doing tens of thousands of units a year. So, and we've had some great conversations with some of the other big builders as well, and they're all really excited about that innovation, but it's one of those things where, as you noted, it's like, who's gonna be that first one to really jump in? And so and that's why we're excited with the LOI with Meritage, and we've had some advanced conversations with some of the others. And that it's about really showing that opportunity. And they all know prefab is the future, I think, or at least it has a big role to play, even if it's just doing certain type portions of the building that make a lot of sense to standardize and do as prefab, and then leveraging customization on site. Or so they know they need to build more, and they know that they don't have the people to do it. Even stepping away from the social impact side, from the housing crisis, there's $1.6 trillion a year on the global construction market that's just left out there because we don't have the efficiency to address it. That's a big slice of pie that we're trying to create an opportunity for people to capture. So like if we're even just thinking about it in purely economic terms, what we're trying to do is help people get a bigger increase of revenue by increasing their throughput, and not necessarily having to figure out where they're going to find the labor to build it, because that labor is just not there.
So I'm here with Dr. Eric Holt, assistant professor at the Franklin L. Burns School of Real Estate and Construction Management at the University of Denver. Welcome, Eric. Do you mind sharing kind of a brief overview of your research and the goals of that study as well for those watching?
About a year ago, the National Housing Endowment commissioned this study through some funding, and then through Building Systems Council at NHB, we're pretty excited. It was one of the first real research studies they put out. The National Housing Endowment does a lot of funding for residential programs, faculty, staff, and students. But we're pretty excited to get their first research grant that they've had in a long time. The goal of it was just to compare traditional stick building, 2x4s, 2x6s, 16 on center that's built out in the field with industrialized construction, pre-cut construction methodology, panelization methodology for home building, and then modular home building, and do some time and material comparisons just to see is such a small market share out there using pre-cut panelization or modular construction relative to the total volume of single family homes being built, but yet this industrialized construction is getting such a huge buzz in media and in industry right now. Why, it does it truly make sense from a economic, time, and material standpoint? And so that was the gist of the study. Myself and 6 grad students got to work on it. Basically, overall, with the studies that we were able to pull through, our industry partners from both small builders, regional builders, national builders, suppliers. Like I said, there's a lot of people in the space looking at it right now. And yes, pre-cut 2x4 framing, panelization wall framing, and modular framing can be and most often is more cost effective. It saves in labor, saves in material, can radically save some time and save some money. But it's the culture shift that all these builders are running up against. We don't like risk. We don't like change in our industry. And so that's becoming the challenge as we look at these different methodologies for industries. Like, everybody can agree that yes, it's a better way to build, but I don't want my boat being rocked, so we're not going to change.
Could you tell me a bit about why builders may be hesitant to these alternative methods, if there are any other reasons besides the culture shock?
It, it's a risk factor. I mean, it's risky enough building these homes out in the open weather and open sites. Um, Builders, a lot of them are doing it to make money, and so they want to control their risks. The current methodology of stick building out of a bunk of lumber that's delivered from a lumber yard is the most cost effective solution out there, and that's why a majority of builders use it. Over 97% of the single family homes built are built with stick built construction. So to make a change to a industrialized more, it takes more pre-planning. You've got to work through all the engineering issues, the logistical issues, the labor issues. That was a huge one. So that's a change in the industry. It also means, you're taking a risk, because what if it doesn't work? What if we don't get the efficiency savings? A lot of and then some of the model that we use to pay for builders, a price per square foot, that works great for stick building. But when you want to increase their efficiency and pay them less because they're being more efficient and building more homes, because you're paying more for the material, because you're processing it more upfront, that's where the shift really breaks down, because they just see that, hey, you're paying me less per square foot. They have to look at the big picture, and all the numbers and the total cost of ownership. And a lot of times the framers are just looking at their little piece.
Have there really been any solutions for that kind of pre-planning stage to make builders more comfortable, or is that kind of something they have to tackle on their own right now?
We actually found that the smaller the builder was, the local builders and the regional builders, they can shift their methodology quicker. They have more control. The really large high production builders, like one of them that we worked with, has 32 different divisions. They build homes 32 different ways. And even though corporate, and you think they could buy and pay the lowest rate market share, well, the corporate would make suggestions of how you could build better. I mean, they helped us with some of these studies to show their divisions that yes, you can be more efficient, you can save cycle time, you can save material time. And the divisions were like, but I'm profitable and I'm hitting my numbers, so I'm not going to change unless you tell me I have to. And the culture of this high production builders, like, no, we just make suggestions, we'd like for you to make this change. But it's such a huge shift. And if it's not broken, why fix it? And the other challenge that we hit with, where COVID, pre-COVID, a lot of the breakdown in the supply chain was, at the framing stage and maybe at the foundation change. So there was high motivation to maybe look at like framing studies. That's why NHE commissioned this. That's why a lot of the builders were doing their studies. And now post-COVID, the total supply chain for a lot of these builders has just gone upside down.
It's interesting too, Home Innovations, they came out with a report last month and they were saying, in the midst of the pandemic, there are actually some home builders who are thinking of offsite construction methods more. Is that kind of a surprise to you that out of the pandemic, some builders would consider this more? Or do you think it just makes sense, granted all the supply chain issues and shortages of materials and jobs?
When something like this drastic happens, that's when a lot of change in our industry happens. When we have natural disasters, unfortunately, when hurricanes hit, when fires happen, now when pandemics happen, that's when our industry is typically forced to change. When labor gets so scarce, that's why we're talking about it. If we don't have these outside forces causing havoc in our supply chain and in our market, then no, builders go back to the lowest common denominator, what they know, stick built construction, and let's just go.
Do you see in the future, 5 years, a year, just a couple years from now, the kind of popularity of using a few different offsite construction methods increasing at all?
I would say yes. The builders right now are running the numbers to see and make stuff work. Does it pencil? I mean, ultimately, builders are going to consider it, but they're going to consider it first economically.
So, are there any other offsite construction methods or pieces like that builders are more comfortable with?
So the roof trusses, obviously, and it still blows me away. There are places in this country that still stick built roofs, and but just some markets are like that. So that's a really quick, easy step, low hanging fruit, easy transition. The next, the pre-cut, I'm surprised more builders are not looking at that, because that really is more close to the traditional stick built. I mean, it's still a bunk of studs. It just happens to be a little more processed. The framer still has to go through a lot of the same stuff. They just have to run a saw, and that can, if done in the planning process correctly, just seems like a really natural, easy next step. The next is wall panels, and I know we're talking about this as like, wow, this is new technology. They've been doing wall panels since the 60s and even earlier. I mean, all of these technologies we're talking about that are like, ooh, this is new. No, it goes in cycles, and we've been doing this for eons. So, but wall panels are the next easy step, and that's really a natural for a lot of builders if they can get their framing labor prices to align, because it's actually easier for the framers. When I was building back in the 90s, we used wall panels pretty consistently. We didn't have a self-performing. We were subbing them or getting them from the supplier, and we were, labor was another subcontractor. But it's a really good way to build. You can control the cost that way.
I'm really interested on your opinion of mighty buildings then. And
so this is, again, me looking at from the academic bubble, but 3D printing has been around. You hear it in making news, and I had kind of put it off as something for 5 to 10 years out. I mean, one of Sam's competitors have been around longer, but they're down in the Austin and Dallas, Texas market, because again, it's less regulated. It's wide open spaces, flat land, and so they can Icon can print down there. And if you watch, because students bring this stuff to me all the time about, hey, this is a better way to build a house, and I watch the video, I'm like, okay, you don't have outlets that meet code. You don't have outlet that is 6 feet from every opening and 12 feet on center. Little things like that we have in our building code. And from that little fact alone, it's like, well, this is a ways out. They haven't worked out the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems yet. So when I got connected up 6 months ago through the Housing Innovation Alliance to Mighty Buildings, and I started cyber stalking them, I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys have figured out the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. They've based themselves specifically in California, because if you can build it there, you can build it anywhere, sung to the tune of Frank Sinatra, because of the regulations, because of the code. So if you can get past and do stuff, and they've got product printed, installed on the ground, occupied, so it's been through the regulations, it's been through the permitting process, it's been through engineering. That's huge in California. And so all of a sudden I'm like, wow, 3D printing, Mighty Building Way is a lot farther along and actually closer to reality. It is reality than what I've seen elsewhere. And so all of a sudden the interest for us, we're talking to Sam about what can we do in research to help him move his stuff forward. And because we're at a business school, we're looking from the business model of it, not the technical engineering, how to print faster stuff. That's not our wheelhouse. But how to, could we move their model into, say, a Denver market that's got a huge need for ADUs? Could we help them in the modular? Can they go up and in the multifamily market? And so what I wrote off as a 5 to 10 year maybe down the road, now all of a sudden, like, wow, that is now technology. The fact that he can set up in a small warehouse, 60,000 square feet sounds huge, but you think about the size of what a panel plant needs, that's tiny.
Yeah.
That won't even cover the storage material for the lumber yard, let alone all the truss and wall lines and things. So the fact that it's nimble, sustainable, because it can reuse different, or reuse old material or mess ups, and then the automation of it, the scalability. You want to do something bigger, just get a pretty bigger printing. So I'm pretty excited about Mighty Buildings and what I see in them. I mean, I was asking in my mind as I look at their technology and how fine they can print relative to other 3D printing that is, squirting out a big tube of paste of concrete, where they could, why can't they 3D print up all the electrical boxes and conduit chases within their model? And then the electricians just got to do full wire. Why can't they print up the countertops and we just slide the base cabinet of wood underneath? Why can't they 3D print in? And I was asking Sam this, oh yeah, we can do it. We just got to get to that. They're still doing the big picture proof of concept, but at least their proof of concept actually is passing California code, being installed. And so these are their goals, is to get to that. They have the technology to do that level of detail. It's just a matter of getting a client willing to push and try it. And so if they've got a partnership with a production home builder, that's going to push them harder, faster, to market quicker. So that's exciting to see. I mean, I think they've got a lot of potential of all the 3D printing stuff I've seen to make, the fastest, as long as they get through all the California regulations, but impact, because like I said, they can do it in California, then it's going to be super easy transferable to the Denver, Seattle. I mean, especially up and down the West Coast, when you've got the same seismic zones and building codes and engineering and fire and all those requirements, that, to take that technology, if it, again, it's not coming to a regulation, it's coming into, does it make sense economically in other markets?
Mhm.
So that's one of the things, we're going to look at the Denver market. Does it economically make sense here? Because I'm from the Midwest Indiana, I'd love to price out doing it there. The technology and the coding and the regulations, I mean, it'll be overbuilt and over-engineered and over-regulated for the Indiana market. So can it still economically make sense? That's what's going to come down to, like from the stick builders, the top two things. It's got to save us time and it's got to save us money. And if it doesn't, just because it's cool technology, we're not interested.
Mhm.
So